But right now, at this very moment, two Horcruxes are interacting with each other for the first time. This seems like an inappropriate question to ask, but I am kind of curious, like, what would your Horcrux be? If you had one. Okay, anyway, now that we've discovered this plot hole, I'm completely out of it. Welcome to Muggles and Mocha, everybody. I hope you all had an excellent Halloween and that you all got a bunch of candy, because let's be real, it's more for the adults than it is the kids anyway. As I've said before, I have 3 little brothers-in-law and they all went trick-or-treating on Saturday. And I was just sitting there like, yes, once you go to sleep, this means I get all the chocolate I want. So yeah, Halloween is like one of the best holidays. Also, I hope you really enjoyed our Peeves video from last week. It was so fun to make. And I hope that you learned a lot. Like I said, I did, and I would love to do more of that. Just focusing on a specific topic and hashing it out with you guys. So if you liked that video, let me know in the comments and let me know any ideas of different subjects you'd like to hear about in the future. And if you are new here, welcome to our Harry Potter book club, Muggles and Mocha, where we're breaking down every single one of the Harry Potter books, and we're in the middle of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. And this book club is connected to my editing website, MadisonKdarby.com. Where I offer different editing services and publish all my Muggles and Mocha stuff. Also, I realize I have not explained my rant stick in a while. So for any of you who are new and just have seen me like flailing around with a wand, this is my wand that I got at Universal Studios at Harry Potter World. And this wand chose me, so yeah, whatever that's worth. I got to do the wand ceremony and this wand picked me, so I just pick it up when I'm feeling really passionate about something. So it'll probably happen in this video. We also have an article below, which I actually haven't written yet, but I have planned it out, okay? It's been a busy week. It's been Halloween week up to this point. So I haven't gotten the chance to write it yet, but it is gonna be about Tom Riddle and Harry's empathy for him and how it begins. Oh, a lot of stuff. I've told you guys, I'm so excited about this chapter. So the article is below if you're interested in reading that. My mug for today is actually a Psych reference, if any of y'all are a fan of that show. It's actually my husband's mug that he got for Christmas one year, but it's all the names that Sean calls Gus, his made-up name. So cheers, grab your coffee, and let's get started on chapter 13. Today we're going over one of my favorite chapters in the book, which is the Very Secret Diary. And this is where like the main plot is building and we're getting down into the nitty-gritty of what's really going on, even if we haven't connected all the pieces yet and we don't really know who's responsible. This is where we're kind of introduced to the main force that is responsible for this whole mess. So let's just jump in. We begin with catching up with the trio and finding out that Hermione is recovering in the hospital wing from the whole debacle of the polyjuice potion. And she's been in there for several weeks. And that is a lot. From now on, I always try to tell like how serious a magical injury is by how long they stay in the hospital wing. And I'm basing it off of Harry's bone regrowth. Because to me, growing bones is a huge deal, and he did that in one night. So for Hermione to be in there for weeks means that, like, as far as magical injuries, if you want to call it that, go, this is like a big deal. Am I focusing too much on this? I don't know. A little after this, Harry and Ron come upon Filch ranting and raving that the floor is flooded again, and they realize that Moaning Myrtle has flooded her bathroom out of misery and anger. Harry and Ron discover that she's doing this because someone threw a book at her. She was in a toilet and someone threw a book in the toilet and it went through her head. And they soon realize that someone was trying really hard to get rid of this book. And at first, Ron stops Harry from picking it up. And honestly, I love seeing this side of Ron. I love when we get suspicious Ron throughout the books, because he knows a lot about dark artifacts and the things that can be done by dark wizards to trick muggles and wizards alike. And that's because of the influence of his dad. I'm sure Arthur Weasley warns his kids all the time about this. And actually, at the end of the book, we do find out that they expected Ginny to not fall for something like this because her parents speak so strongly about how dangerous unknown magical artifacts can be. Harry realizes it's a diary and that it is completely empty, and it was bought in a Muggle bookstore. And I actually looked up the street that it was bought on, and it's not a real street. J.K. Rowling made it up. But it's still supposed to be the clue that shows Harry that this journal diary was purchased in the Muggle world. But right now, at this very moment, two Horcruxes are interacting with each other for the first time. And spoiler alert, I should have said that. We're talking about Horcruxes. For some reason, that's the only subject that I talk about that I just feel, I just don't want people to know. So, if you haven't read the books, get out of here. So here's a question. What do you think about the movie's edition of Horcruxes reacting around each other whenever they're forced into contact? Like in the movies, we see Harry touch the ring that was Voldemort's Horcrux. And actually, oh my gosh, y'all, I think I've just identified a plot hole in the movies. When Harry touches that ring, it's not a Horcrux anymore, and yet it still reacts to him. Oh my gosh. Yeah, because like by the time Dumbledore's hand is cursed, it's because he tried to put it on, but he destroys the Horcrux like in that instance. After, I guess it tricks him or whatever, it makes him want to bring his sister back. I don't know, sad. But either way, the Horcrux is destroyed by the time Harry would have touched it in the movie, and there shouldn't be an echo of the Horcrux. We wouldn't see that with Harry as a human. When the Horcrux is gone from him, he doesn't have any lasting effects besides the scar, but you know, it doesn't burn. He can't speak Parseltongue. That was a mess up. Okay, anyway, now that we've discovered this plot hole, I'm completely out of it. But if the ring was still a Horcrux when Harry touched it, and it bounces around and he does his weird neck thing. Y'all know what I'm talking about. It's like you can see that there's a connection between Harry and this object, which is something that they added into the movies. What do y'all think about that? Because personally, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't want it to give anything away. I would want it to be subtle enough to where we didn't realize that it was Harry that had a connection with these objects. But I just don't know how you'd be able to do that, because in the books, it's such a surprise for us to find this out. While in the movies, you kind of get the tone that there's something weird going on with Harry there. I don't know. But what do you think? Do you like that the movies added that? Do you not? I feel like it kind of makes you think there's something going on before you should, and I don't like that personally. Maybe that's how I feel. Maybe I don't like it. What do you think? It's like in the Goblet of Fire when they had stinking Mad-Eye Moody like stick his tongue out all the time. That makes me so mad because the Mad-Eye Moody reveal is so shocking, and then they had to make him act all suspicious in the movie, and I just thought that was unnecessary. And man, did we identify a plot hole with the Horcrux ring thing? Let me know in the comments, because I think we did. That ring should not have reacted to Harry if it didn't have a Horcrux in it anymore, and it didn't. What do you think? Anyway, important moment. Harry is a Horcrux, the diary is a Horcrux, and just worlds colliding here. The trio starts to suspect that since this diary is from 50 years ago, and this Tom Riddle character won an award for special services to the school, that this person could have known who opened the Chamber of Secrets. And this is a valid train of thought, especially since someone tried to destroy it. And as we find out, this person does know who opened the Chamber of Secrets. Also, guys, what about what Ron says about Moaning Myrtle here? He talks about Tom Riddle and his special service to the school and says maybe he murdered Myrtle. That would have been a special service. And oh my gosh, My mouth like dropped open when I read that and I was like, oh, Ron. I'm sure this is part of the whole theory about Ron being a seer. I've brought that up before. I don't think any of you have said anything about it yet. And again, I have not researched it, but there are some people who think that Ron is like an undercover seer, like he doesn't even know because apparently he spouts truth every once in a while. And I guess this would be one of the times. Time moves on and we find out that the mandrakes are getting ready. And I love how J.K. Rowling describes them as like actual teenagers, like moody and grumpy, and they have acne. And honestly, I did not catch that as a kid, but it was pretty funny. And there is a lull in the heir of Slytherin's attacks because the diary is now in someone else's hands. So that's kind of interesting, knowing the end and then seeing this. Then we get a series of events that didn't make it into the movie. And honestly, I can see why. Lockhart, and it's been so great to have a break from him, at least for a moment. He puts together this Valentine's thing as a morale booster. And honestly, I don't know why I'm picking my wand for this. I guess I just need to feel valid. I find this kind of endearing for Lockhart to do this, and I think it's actually coming from a semi-genuine place. Granted, it is time for more people to praise Lockhart and send him cards, but I do think he believes he's bringing happiness to people during a dark time. With those singing dwarves. Harry gets a singing Valentine from poor Ginny Weasley. This dwarf sings him a song about how his eyes are as green as a fresh pickled toad, and like, did Ginny write these lyrics? I don't know. But what's more important here is Tom Riddle's diary gets soaked with ink, and that's what makes Harry realize that there's something strange going on with this book because it doesn't have anything on the pages. So that clues Harry in. But we also have Ginny Weasley seeing the diary, and she's horrified that Harry has it. Like, will Tom tell him what I said or what I've done? This is played off so well because we think Ginny's like horrified about this dwarf debacle, and also Malfoy like about to maybe embarrass Harry. And I don't know, I think it's really easy to brush aside and not suspect her while also throwing like a little Easter egg in there. This chapter ends with a fascinating interaction. Harry writes in this diary and he speaks with this mysterious Tom Riddle. And like I said, this part is really interesting to me for a couple of reasons. But one is that this is the first time that Harry is actually like interacting with another Horcrux. And what's also interesting is this diary was Tom Riddle's, Voldemort's, first ever Horcrux. A little bit about this Horcrux. It's a little different from the rest of them, as you're gonna see. First, he made it using Myrtle's death. Again, we don't know the details about the curse or spell or whatever you want to call it that makes a Horcrux, but we know that a death is involved, and it rips apart the person's soul, and then they're able to lock it onto an object. This seems like an inappropriate question to ask, but I am kind of curious, like, what would your Horcrux be? If you had one. Not thinking that any of you would do something like this, but just curious, like, what would I want to lock part of my soul in where I think it would be safe? I've heard people say like random objects like a quarter or something like that no one would really suspect. But I also this feels so weird. I don't like that Voldemort made Horcruxes, but I do like the fact that it's all like sentimental objects in his life, kind of like trophies. It's but interesting and tells us a lot about him. Maybe mine would be the rant stick. I kind of like the idea of like making it a ring too, like Voldemort did. Oh, this is such a weird topic. I don't know, I'm a big ring person and they just hold a lot of value to me, so maybe that would be what mine was. What about you? Back to the diary. The reason this one was sentimental to Voldemort is not like the other ones. It wasn't really for sentimental reasons as much as it was to be used as a tool to prove that he was the one who opened the Chamber of Secrets, or to use it to get other people to open it. So what's particularly interesting about this one is that it wasn't only intended to be a safe place for his soul. It was meant to be used as a weapon to open the chamber again. That's what Dumbledore says in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Actually, this distinct difference of this Horcrux from the rest is what clues Dumbledore in that Voldemort most likely made more Horcruxes, because he was kind of reckless with this one. So this would bring to mind that Voldemort probably had more than one Horcrux if he was willing for this one to fall into someone's hands and actually intended it to fall into someone's hands. And actually, I think some of you and me have asked questions about this, like, when did Dumbledore know about the whole Horcrux situation? And when Dumbledore hears Harry recount the story of Riddle coming out of the diary and this memory interacting with humanity and even trying to like suck the life out of someone, he suspects the sinister nature behind this and eventually comes to the conclusion that a part of Voldemort was in the diary. And the cavalier nature of this Horcrux, that it wasn't only meant to house Voldemort's soul, but to be used to continue his work, makes him think that there are more that are being kept like under lock and key and safer. So, very, very, very interesting. I didn't know all of this before this video, but this was the first Horcrux, and it was intended to be used as a weapon. But back to Harry. At this point, he just thinks he's talking to a magic diary. Riddle tells him a little bit about what happened 50 years ago, and this is the first time we see Harry go back into a memory, much like what we see later with the pensieve. How do y'all pronounce that? Harry realizes he's back 50 years prior and sees Tom talk to Armando Dippet, who was the headmaster at the time. And from an outside perspective, and not knowing it's Voldemort, it's a pretty sad conversation for Harry to hear. Like, Harry's watching this kid nervously waiting, like his hands are clenched, and he's waiting to find out if he can stay at Hogwarts for the summer instead of going back home to a place that he hates. And we find out that Riddle is an orphan who hates his home life. And this is a huge, huge moment, because while Harry is defined by many things, one of the first things we learn about him in the entire book series is this terrible situation he is in with the Dursleys. Like, before we know anything about Harry, we know he's being abused by his aunt and uncle, who treat him terribly, and that he just hates it there. And actually, one of the driving forces that leads Harry to want to come to Hogwarts in this book, when he's blocked from platform 9 3/4, is that he doesn't want to go back to the Dursleys. Like, Hogwarts is his true home. So Harry, almost more than anyone else in the series, can identify with what Tom Riddle is going through here, with not wanting to go back home for the summer. And I'm going to talk about this more in the article, because this is what the article is going to be about, and I'm so excited. But this scene is just so ingenious. Like, this is the first time we meet Tom Riddle, and also the first time Harry meets Tom Riddle. And the situation we see isn't of this man who is killing people. It's of a boy who wants to stay at the most magical place in his life, the place that has become home to him. And the first emotion that Harry feels towards this person isn't fear, it's sympathy and, you know, understanding and being able to relate to him and feeling sorry for him and viewing him as someone that is like Harry. Oh my gosh, so far in this book, we've seen Harry panic about being the heir of Slytherin or a Parseltongue or being in Slytherin's house, which is all like subconsciously related to Voldemort, in my opinion. I think that's why Harry has such a huge disdain for Slytherin, because Voldemort's one of the first people he hears about in correlation with that house. So we've spent the whole book up to this point with Harry being like, I don't want to be like him, I don't want to be like Slytherin, I just want to be Harry in Gryffindor. And then the first time he sees Voldemort, he relates to him. And of course, in this moment, Harry doesn't know it's Voldemort yet. But later, we see the sympathy stick around in a different way. It morphs as Harry realizes what a miserable being Voldemort is. He's someone without compassion, friends, family. He can't understand love even a little bit. And that's where Harry and Voldemort are different in the most important way. But yeah, that's what I'm planning on the article being about. It may be about the diary as well, but either way, it is below. Of course, Harry doesn't know all of this yet. So he's just following Riddle, and he can tell that he's thinking hard. And then he stumbles upon the person that all of us would have least suspected, which is Hagrid with a monster. Because it being Hagrid is so shocking to Harry and us. And it's so clever how Riddle acts in this scene, because he acts convinced that it's Hagrid even when he's talking to Hagrid, like no one else is around. And he knows Hagrid is innocent, obviously, but he's making it really seem like he thinks it's Hagrid. So now everyone who sees this memory is on Riddle's side. And we end the chapter with this paragraph. The scene whirled. The darkness became complete. Harry felt himself falling, and with a crash, he landed spread-eagled on his four-poster in the Gryffindor dormitory, Riddle's diary lying open on his stomach. Before he had had time to regain his breath, the dormitory door opened and Ron came in. "There you are," he said. Harry sat up. He was sweating and shaking. "What's up?" said Ron, looking at him with concern. "It was Hagrid, Ron. Hagrid opened the Chamber of Secrets 50 years ago." Oh, I got chills. I got chills reading that, like no kidding. So Harry, Ron, and Hermione begin to suspect that Hagrid is somehow involved, even if it's somehow by accident. And that's all we have for today. Man, I don't even really know what to say, because this chapter, even though you have things like the Valentine's Day singing and all of that, it just feels really heavy at the end of it. Again, I've already said this a couple of times, but check out the article. I'll be including more details about this whole memory thing there as well, because it's a huge deal in so many ways. Yeah, so that's all I have for today. If you liked this video, go ahead and like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And also, if you haven't followed me on social media yet, you can find that through the website that is in this description box. I have all of the links on there, and you can keep up with all of the news of what's going on around here. Also, if there's anything you'd like to say about the topics that were covered today, or anything you'd like to add, I love reading comments, so feel free to comment below as well. And answer this question for me if you do comment. How are you enjoying this book so far? Has your opinion changed about it on this read? Because mine definitely has. Like, I don't really know where it ranks in my list of Harry Potter books, like what my favorite is. And actually, now that I think about it, I have never done a list of, you know, how they rank in my opinion. Maybe I should make a video on that sometime. But what I can say is I have really, really loved reading this again, and wow. Just a lot. Next week, we'll be covering Chapter 14, Cornelius Fudge, so be sure to read that in the meantime, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.